how do you make something from nothing? Well, my family's been doing just that since 1565. I'm the first one in generations and generations not to be either a farm worker or a farmer who owns his own farm. I'll give you a little bit of a backstory to this. One of my subscribers said that he believes there's many Americans on welfare hoping to get a job similar to the kind of job they had previously on a similar sort of wage, and you know, they've been looking for a job like that for years and haven't found one, and they're sort of aiming too high, and they should just take what jobs are out there. You know, and if you can take a $10 an hour job, you know, that may be what you're going to have to do. But I realise there's other people who have let it got too far, or in some areas that's not an option. You know, Detroit, for instance, has more homeless people than car owners. This is Detroit. You know, in some cases, people let things go too long and drag themselves into massive debt and only wake up to the situation they're in when they actually, you know, within the first few days of being in a tent city and realise, hell, I'm homeless, things are real bad here. So, this is a few tips on how to just make a few dollars, not to make thousands and buy yourself a property and go off grid, but enough just to get you going with a little bit of money from essentially nowhere. Now, of course, it's scrap metal, but you need a truck for that. But there's another one I'm coming across. Over here, there's a place that sets up in malls, and they're called gold buyers, and that's just the name. Gold buyers is the name of the business. And they buy all old jewellery and stuff like that, broken stuff, for the gold in it. Now, contrary to a lot of pure BS videos I've seen on YouTube, almost no computer stuff, aside from a few processors and other high-end chips from the 80s and stuff like that, almost none of them have gold in them. But this gold buyers mob is interested in buying phones, and I think what they're after is the ferrite in the phones. And you may see this on your laptop, where you have, like, just before it plugs into the side of the laptop, between the transformer box and where the plug goes in, there's a little round thing that's probably inch long and about 3/4 inch wide, at least half an inch wide, and that should be ferrite. You'll find it in the back of radios. I don't know if this is what they're after. I haven't really researched it. They may be after the neodymium magnets that are in it, or, you know, the neodymium itself, because one thing about neodymium magnets is it's not hard to come by the rare earth raw material, but it's mixed in with several other things that are similar to it, and it is extremely hard to refine, very hard to refine. So they may be just after the neodymium magnets, because according to Electronics Catalogue, I've got neodymium about a year or two ago went fourfold in price in about 9 months. Maybe that's what they're after, but they're after something in phones, and I believe ferrite. There's something in mobile phones. I don't know if it's ferrite or something else. It's not neodymium, because I know where that comes from. It's mainly from China, and we've got quite a bit of stuff here that could be mined for neodymium as well. But there's something in phones which is very hard to come by, because it's only mined in Africa, usually in Western Africa, in these war zone regions. So if you can find out what that is, you might be going somewhere with that. Of course, there's also aluminium cans, aluminum cans, and I've seen an interview with a homeless man in California who says that with an hour a day of picking up these cans, you'll get yourself a couple of dollars just, you know, to get by, to be able to get yourself a 50-cent shower at camping grounds. And you may want to look into, you getting a membership at a gym. There's one apparently that gives you 6 months free, and the next 6 months you pay $20 a month, $120 a year, and you've got yourself a place where you can go any hour of the day to get out of snowstorms. You can also have showers there and whatnot. And there's a number of other things you can do. If you're knowledgeable on stuff, you can teach people about edible weeds. Furthermore, you can pick edible weeds and sell them as food to people who are interested in organics. These wealthier greenies, they may be interested in either being taught that or you supplying them with food that is organic. And let's face it, lamb's quarters, amaranth, and what's the other one? Garlic mustard. All of those I don't think taste too bad at all. I haven't had amaranth. It's not really around in Australia, but lamb's quarters is. It tastes like silver beet. And when you boil garlic mustard, it tastes like cabbage. As soon as it sort of tastes mustardy when it's raw, but as soon as it hits the hot water, it wipes out all the mustard taste. So that may be another thing. Another one is around here, especially around my area, there's a lot of cherry ones, cherry plums. They're not actual cherries, but they're just small plums. And I've got those at my house and the rivers near where I live. Also, I've seen larger plums, on rivers, on the side of roads. We've even got apples near us, but they're always, the birds get all the good ones. But that may be another thing. The amount of plums that you can get if you can pick them all and sell them as organic produce. That's a real option. The other option is scavenging. I have heard, and this may feel a little bit funny to you, but it is, in essence, there's people that make money out of this big time, and that is jumping into dumpsters and getting stuff out. Now, I've heard of people getting food items out, and the packaging has a bit of muck, so they rip the packaging off, all the outer packaging, or they wash the packaging and then they sell it. And it may be out of date, but there's so much of it that is actually absolutely perfect. And if you're not if you're a bit funny on that, or you don't know anyone who's after food, because food's dearer in Australia than it is in America, it's a chance to get food for yourself. But there's also other items which may be interesting. I know of, there's a perfect thing that I've got. It's a little drawer that I've got dishes and stuff in my kitchen. My uncle got that out of a particular shop's dumpster, and everything they get returned they throw in the dumpster. Now, they'd gone and written down, they have a little ticket, they've got to write the reason for return. Well, they stick that on the outside. It said there were too few screws. Well, I've spent years in building, I've fitted out kitchens and all that, and I actually had more screws than I needed, more screws than there were even holes for, and I assembled this thing and it was perfect. There's plenty of other items like that aren't food, that are hard items, that, are fine. I've seen a bit of a internet forum on people who do this as a job. One of them, back in the good old days before the GFC, there was a computer shop closed down. They just chucked the whole lot in the dumpster. The computer he was on at the time was, that he was on the forum with, was one he got at the dumpster. And he sold the others for about $3,500. Another one was, I think, in some high-end area of LA or somewhere, and it was a perfume shop that closed down. They got all this high-end perfume. I mean, it was really top-notch perfume. They threw the lot in the bin. It was still in boxes. He got it out with about an hour's work, and it was worth $5,000. Well, I'm serious. This was really high-end perfume, really wasn't some bloomin', what turns out here at the markets they sell knockoff stuff, and it turns out it's actually based on goat piss brought over from Vietnam and badged as, or somewhere there, and badged as something that is not. But this wasn't some bloomin' goat piss, this was real high-end stuff, and he sold it. And there's a lot of stuff that you can get that you can just get out of dumpsters you can sell. Another one is Fresnel lenses. Now, people give away these TVs for free. Another person whose channel I've watched found one dumped on the side of the road and come back later on that day with a screwdriver and you know, took out all the bits you needed. And you can basically, right in behind the very front of the screen, there's this great big lens, and it's essentially a giant magnifying glass. But it's a big rectangular thing, and I mean, it's pretty flaming big. It's basically the size of the entire screen. But that is in rear-projection TVs. Now, these are from the late 80s maybe, but more the early 90s. And, you know, if you find those, you can disassemble them, pull out the Fresnel lens, and sell the Fresnel lens as a solar cooker. And all they've got to do is just make some little frame up to hold it, you know, or if you can find some mounts that held the screen, the Fresnel lens in the screen originally, you could use those to help make the frame that holds the Fresnel lens, you know, especially if it's already sort of in a frame, and sell those, because, you know, they are very good as solar cookers, and you can sell those. Every time I'm going along and I see a TV on the side of the road, most times now I'm pulling up, especially if the back's been broken off it, or I can just give it a boot and break the back off. Well, I haven't been doing booting the back off, but, you know, enough times if one's already cracked open, I will go and rip the, I forget what they call, but basically there's a bit over the back of the old CRT tube, which has got a copper wire in it that I can use for pin fin. But I grab that copper anyway, and I also grab any electric motors because there's copper in it. Copper is, when I was at Air Radiators about 9 months ago, they told us that copper was the most expensive it's ever been in history. You know, and the price of copper is starting to go astronomical. You know, and it's purely because of, well, you know, China making so many electronics, really. So that's another one you may want to look into, is just go grabbing all the copper. And, you know, you mightn't have a great weight, or you might only have a car or whatever, or you mightn't have much at all, but copper is quite lightweight, but it's quite high value. And they will buy it by the kilo from you, but it's not like trying to collect car batteries, you know, which are damn heavy. But, you know, there's a number of other salvageable bits and pieces that you can ransack out, like I said about the mobile phones, you know, and stuff where you can get bits and pieces out and reuse it. And the other option is maybe to get hold of old TVs and that, and ransack transformers out and stuff like that, and sell them to people who are interested in transformers, you know, who need step-down transformers for experiments and whatever they're doing. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of little options. The other one is fans out of computers are always very good, because a lot of those, most of them are 12 volts, and you can use those in your little solar rigs to, you know, ventilate the room or whatever, or even blow against, you know, the right part of your wood heater with pin fin to help get warmth in the air. You know, all these things are, you know, sort of got bits and pieces in them that are saleable items. But yeah, you know, so basically salvaging and scavenging is, you know, a way that you can get what you're after in regards to trying to get yourself a little bit of money, just enough to keep yourself going.